We're going to talk about factoring today. Hopefully, this will help things make a little more sense. We talked about on this warm up yesterday working with the box backwards and filling in the different pieces. So if we have 6x squared minus 21x plus 2x minus 7, we talked about the importance of finding the GCF. So the GCF between 6 and 21 is going to be 3. And then we talked about letters can also be a GCF, so x squared and x, so they have an x in common. And then we talked about dividing, so 6x squared divided by 3x is in fact 2x, and negative 21x divided by 3x is just a negative 7. And then we said to fill this in, something times negative 7 is positive 1. So our factors are 3x plus 1 and 2x minus 7. And we said that means if we were to distribute or do box, we would end up back with this whole big polynomial here. Just as a review of things we've gone over, we've talked about multiplying. We said be careful with the signs. We also need to be careful with our exponents. So we said when you have the outside pieces, you're multiplying. So 3x squared, positive 7x, and then we are multiplying down here, negative 12x and negative 28. That was where we started. Then yesterday, 3x squared, we filled in the middle, and then we worked backwards. So again, we're looking for that GCF. We said it was 3 and x. So 3x squared divided by 3x is just x. Negative 12x divided by 3x is going to be that negative 4. And then negative 4 times a positive 7 gives me negative 28. So you can see that these are just backwards of each other. So what we're going to talk about today is what do you do when you're not given the two middle terms, okay? So how are we going to figure out what goes here? So we're just going to set this one up, 3x squared minus 28. Those still are going to go there, but we got to figure out what goes in these two boxes here and here that together would be a negative 5x. And that is kind of where we're going today. We are going to have to, in order to do this, look at some factors. We talked about factors and GCFs yesterday. So factors are the numbers that multiply. So what multiplies to give you 12? 1 times 12. We said go down the list, right? What's next? 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And that would be all of them. 20 would be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 5, right? And so what we're looking at is we're just kind of going down. We know we're done. It's like a U shape, right? Go down and back up. We talked about GCF, 6, 8, and 14. What's the number they have in common? It would be 2. And then yesterday we said when you take out that GCF, well, what is left? Because essentially we're dividing by that GCF. So what's left? 3x squared. 8 divided by 2 is 4x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So that was what we were talking about. And I want you to notice what we have right here when we do that. So this is called standard form, okay? When it's in this same format where you have an A, which is in front of the x squared always. Sometimes it's a 1. So if there's just x squared, it would be a 1. We have a B and we have a C. And we're going to use this standard form to help us fill in these boxes. It's kind of like a puzzle. And when we do this, we're looking at this. We're going to start with when A is 1, just a cross puzzle. And then tomorrow, when we have a number for A, we will do something called the snowflake. So the steps, just so you're aware, if it's not in standard form, again, ax squared plus bx plus c. If it's not like that, you need to make sure it is. Always factor out a GCF first. So sometimes there will be one, sometimes there won't. If there is a GCF, take it out, and then you'll end up with the standard form. We're going to set up our X box, or I've been known to call this a cross puzzle. You're going to also hear me call it a snowflake. Plug in our factors. So like we looked at a minute ago, right? AX squared goes in this top left box and C will go in the bottom right. And we got to figure out what goes here and that's going to equal our B term, right? So these are going to equal whatever BX is. And in order to do that, we will take our A times our C, whatever those numbers are, and our B, and we're going to have to figure out some of that. We're going to have to make sure that we have some GCFs there. Things I do want you to be aware of, we're going to write this on the back of the next page, right down here before we move on. When we're looking at this, you need to pay attention to our signs, okay? Signs are going to be real important when we do this. If C is positive, okay, then our signs are the same as what B is. Okay, and I know that doesn't make a ton of sense. I am going to show you an example there. All right, so if if C is positive, our signs are going to be the same as whatever B is. If C is negative, and we'll talk about why this is. If C is negative, then our signs are going to be different. And what I'm talking about when I say signs, whatever we get when we do our factors, right? So we have x plus or minus some number, x plus or minus some number, okay? So I do want to do a couple with you so you can see what this looks like. We are going to use that cross puzzle. We need to start off first by identifying our A. A is 1 here. B is always the number in front of the x. It happens to be 14 on this one. And C is 45. Now, notice that C is positive. So when we write our factors, our signs are going to match whatever B is. So we're going to have x plus some number and x plus some number. So let's talk about how to figure out what that number is going to be. So I'm going to draw. We're just going to start with a cross puzzle today. Tomorrow we'll look at the snowflake thing. And we're going to say whatever A times C is, well, A is 1 times C is 45. So 45. And B is going to go here. Well, my B is a positive 14. And we already said our signs are going to be positive. Now, what we want to fill in here are going to be the numbers, right? We're looking for numbers that multiply to be 45, but that add to be 14, okay? Because when we do our box, if I go back here and I'm looking at my box, right? We said, I want you to pay attention to this piece. When we get these factors, which is what we're trying to do, these multiply to be C, which is why we said A times C, right? And then these two, whatever we get here, they need to add to give us that C value, right? Which happens to be -5. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going with this. So we're going to have to list our factors. Factors are just going to be numbers that we multiply. So we have 1 times 45. 2 doesn't work. 3 and 15. If you're not sure, you can always use your calculator. 4 doesn't work. 5 and 9, and we're done. So we're looking at these factors and we're going to be like, okay, we need to get 14. Well, 1 plus 45 is 46. That's not 14. 3 plus 15 is 18. But 5 plus 9 is 14. So I'm going to put, oh, wrong button, sorry. I'm going to put 5 and 9. And those are going to be my numbers that go here. So I can say x plus 5, x plus 9, okay? And that is going to be my answer. If I distributed x plus 5 times x plus 9, I will get x squared plus 14x plus 45, okay? So that is important. Let's look at another one. Now, this one, remember, the first step is always to make sure you take out a GCF. These are all evens. So I need to take out a GCF of 2. There is no x's on all of them, so I can't take out an x. So essentially, I'm going to divide all of these by 2. So I am left with, put my 2 out here. 2 divided by 2 is just 1. X squared, you could put the 1 if you want. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Negative 28 divided by 2 is negative 14. Okay, so I have, this is A, this is B, and this is C. So we're going to, we know that we're going to have x. We're going to have x. And I want you to notice that the C is negative. So on our notes that we wrote down here, if C is negative, the signs are going to be different. And they're going to be different because a negative times a positive gives me this negative. Remember, this is going to be in that bottom box. If I was to draw my box real quick, so I want you to see what's happening, right? Here's my x squared. Here's my negative 14. This has to be, something has to be positive, something has to be negative to get this negative 14. So that's what we want to figure out. So I'm going to draw my cross puzzle, right? A times C. I am going to put that 2 I took out at the front there so I don't forget. A times C. So 1 times negative 14 is negative 14. B is a positive 5. I know my signs have to be different. So now when I list my factors of 14, one is going to be positive, one's going to be negative. We're going to have to figure that out. But we need to subtract to get this 5. So 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. Well, 2 minus 7 is 5. So those are my numbers, but I got to decide which goes where because I need to have a positive 5. So if I have a positive 2 and a negative 7, that's a negative 5. That's not going to work. I need to have a positive 7 and a negative 2. So I can just put those, oh, wrong one. Pay attention to the signs, Mrs. Ray. Negative 2, positive 7. And I put that 2 GCF that I pulled out. So if I distribute here, 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 and then multiply by 2, I should end up back with this. Okay? This last one, A is not 1. So I do want to give you like a little preview. We'll do what we're going to look at tomorrow. This one, because A is not 1, we would need to do a snowflake. Actually, I'm going to change this one. We're not ready for that. So let's change this and let's do, let me think of one. Let's do n squared minus 10n plus 9. We're not ready for, we'll do A being some other number tomorrow. So A is 1. I want you to notice, so A times C is 9, a positive 9. My B is a negative 10. So now C is positive. My signs are going to match B. B is negative, so I'm going to have two negatives here. And I need to list my factors of 9. 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. Which one of these is going to give me 10? Negative 1, negative 9. So my solution or my factors are x minus 1, x minus 9. So you're going to have to list out these factors on the side so you can figure out what is going in the puzzle. I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions.